Our program starts in 1 minute. We would like to earn your follow. If you like this program, won't you please like and subscribe? Thank you. The management.
Hey, Lorenzo. Lorenzo!
Yes, what is it?
I'd rather you not badger the people.
Badger? What's that?
Badger, bully, nag, that sort of thing.
No, what do you mean?
Well, asking them to like and subscribe. They haven't even heard the show yet.
That's not... What's that word?
Badgering.
Badgering. It's promotion. How do you expect us to grow?
Well, I don't know. By putting on an amazing show?
No way. It will never work.
Well...
And do you really think this show is amazing?
No.
All right then.
Hey, what about that management business? Who do you think the management is?
I threw that into sound official.
Well, you're not the management. I'm the management.
The assistant management.
The what?
I've had business cards printed up.
Portrait of Jennie, the 1948 film starring Jennifer Jones and the very dreamy Joseph Cotten, is one of the weirdest movies I've seen in a long time. Should you watch it? Definitely. Let's talk about it in this episode of the Vintage Century Idol Hour.
Greetings, listeners. Allow me to introduce the very charming Jennifer Passariello.
Hey, thank you for that nice introduction. Lorenzo, right?
Yes, Lorenzo. And you are Jennifer.
Yeah, that's right. Well, it's nice to meet you, Lorenzo. So you're my announcer.
Yes.
Wow, I've never had an announcer before.
How exciting for you.
Well, and honestly, I've never engaged with an AI-generated character before.
What's that?
An AI-generated character?
Yes. What might that be?
Oh, well, aren't you... Lorenzo, are you a real person?
I'm as real as the moon in the sky. You're talking to me right now.
Yeah, but you're AI-generated, right?
I don't know what you're talking about.
Well, AI, artificial intelligence.
I'm very smart.
Your virtual persona created using artificial intelligence technology.
Oh, that. Yes, I'm one of those.
Well, how about that? I've never talked to an AI-generated character before.
It is a magical day for both of us.
So, Lorenzo, what brings you here to the podcast?
I needed a job.
Oh?
It didn't seem like anyone wanted this one, so I took it.
Yeah, well, this is a new podcast. This is episode 1, as a matter of fact.
A monumental moment in broadcast history.
Well, wouldn't that be something? Wouldn't it be something to look back on this episode as the start of an incredible adventure, a fork in the road, a new beginning, a pivot to an entirely different future? It is the beginning of a new year. That's the time to think about such things.
I'm here for it.
Well, I think we're in this together, Lorenzo.
How nice. What is this podcast about anyway?
Old movies.
Oh.
Well, and old things, but mainly old movies. Really, this podcast is part of a personal learning project that I'm taking on at the start of this year.
A personal learning project. I can already hear the clicks.
Clicks?
As people abandon our show.
Oh, well, it may be boring, I'm not going to lie. This is a whole new thing for me, but here's what I'm trying to do. I want to work my way through this list of 80 black and white classic films that I put together. And I want to study what makes them great.
Oh.
Now, I'm not a film scholar or an expert or anything like that.
Of course.
I don't even like movies all that much usually.
I just heard more clicks. The people are flying away.
But my dad is an old movie fanatic, and he's always telling me to watch this old film or that old film, and I always put him off. But I've decided that now I want to learn what all the excitement is about. I like to talk about things that I'm learning, so here we are, the podcast.
Everyone is gone now.
Well, and I like old things in general, so we may discuss some other topics from time to time. I do have a lot of interests, you know.
I think we are going to be very lonely.
Well, maybe, but at least we'll have each other. I'm glad you're here, Lorenzo.
Me too.
Today's silver screen adventure takes us to Portrait of Jennie. This is a fantasy film from 1948, and it's actually based on the book of the same name published in 1940 by Robert Nathan. Here's a little teaser from the book jacket of the 1962 edition of that book. Was Jennie a dream, a memory, a lovely ghost from the past? Or had she stepped from another world into this one? Eben Adams could only guess at the answer, but he understood that Jennie, because she dared to love him, had fused past and present into the delightful, delicate magic of now. Honestly, that's a pretty good little teaser. In a nutshell, that tells us an awful lot of what we need to know about this movie. So what is this movie about? Well, essentially, it's a time slip. It's a romance with a very fluid timeline and some tragedy. Yeah, this is not an uplifting story, but it is a beautiful story. So let's get the Academy Award stats for this film. It did win a couple. So it won an Academy Award for Special Effects and an Academy Award for Best Special Audible Effects. Not quite sure what those might have been. It was also nominated for Best Black and White Cinematography, but it did not win. I'm a little bit surprised by that because one of the things I like the most about it is the cinematography. Sort of that combination between the cinematography and the special effects. Both of them I thought were really good for the time. You know, this is 1948. But anyway, this did get some acclaim at the Academy Awards, but not Best Picture. There were no Best Actor, Best Actress awards for this one. Now, before we dive into my review, I need to share with you a couple of personal things about this movie. There's a song called Portrait of Jennie that I knew long before I even knew about this film. I had not even heard about this film. And that song, Portrait of Jennie, was already part of the soundtrack of my childhood. I mean, it is ingrained in my brain. I know that song like the back of my hand. It's a beautiful song, and it's become a jazz standard. It's been covered by such greats as Clifford Brown. That was an instrumental, probably my favorite version of the song, and also by Nat King Cole, who, of course, sang it. Also, beautiful version of the song. Now, my dad was a jazz musician in his younger years, and he played this song. That's how I came to know it. I mentioned Clifford Brown. One of my all-time favorite albums is Clifford Brown with Strings. And like I said before, his version of Portrait of Jennie, which is on that album, is one that I have great fondness for. I would really suggest that you go out to YouTube and just, do a search, Clifford Brown with Strings. It'll pop right up. Give it a listen because it's really very special. They just don't make albums like that anymore. All right, so anyway, Jennifer Jones plays the title role. So we got a lot of Jennifers going on here. We've got Jennie, we've got Jennifer, and we've got me, right? Because my name is Jennifer, and I was called Jennie when I was small. And at the time when I was called Jennie is when I first came to know about that song. So I always kind of felt like that was my song. And now that I know about the movie, I kind of feel like this is my movie, a special movie just for me. Anyway, I have a strong personal attachment to the whole Jennie universe, I guess you could say. And there is a Jennie universe. I mean, we know about the book, right? We know about the song. We also know about the film because that's what we're going to be talking about. But there's also been a couple of radio show adaptations as well. We're just kind of dipping our toe into this world today by looking at the film. Okay, so this film stars Jennifer Jones, Joseph Cotten. Big Joseph Cotten fan. I first came to know him in Citizen Kane, which I think was his very first movie. Anyway, I love him. He's in this. And also Ethel Barrymore. And I don't really know much about Ethel Barrymore. She's got a rather small part. It's a supporting role in this movie, but it's a very pivotal and meaningful role. I mean, she is the key to us understanding this story and also understanding Eben Adams, who is one of our main characters. Now, there's a lot that we're going to dive into here, so let's take a short little musical break, and when we come back, we'll dive into my review of Portrait of Jennie.
Since the beginning, man has looked into the awesome reaches of infinity and asked the eternal questions. What is time? And what is space? What is life? And what is death? Through 100 civilizations, philosophers and scientists have come with answers. But the bewilderment remains. For each human soul must find the secret in its own faith. The tender and haunting legend of the Portrait of Jennie is based on the two ingredients of faith, truth and hope. There There is such a portrait that hung in the Metropolitan Museum in New York. And there was such a girl named Jennie who sat for it. So much is true. For the rest, science tells us that nothing ever dies, but only changes. That time itself does not pass, but curves around us. And that the past and the future are together at our side forever. Out of the shadows of knowledge and out of a painting that hung on a museum wall comes our story, the truth of which lies not on our screen, but in your heart.
Wow, this is all so mysterious. Who is this Jennie we keep hearing about? Well, she's one of two principal characters in this story. The other character we meet first. His name is Eben Adams. He's an artist, and he is barely hanging on. He sells very little of what he paints, and it's not because he's not talented. His pieces do suggest that he has some talent. The problem is they don't seem to say anything. So he's got all the technique, but not the feeling. I want to play a clip here that sets up the story for us, or at least sets up the character of Eben Adams. This is actually the first scene in the film, and it's probably my favorite in the entire movie. So in this scene, we see Eben, imagine this, he's clutching his portfolio of paintings, and he's looking very sad. Now, how do we know he's sad? Well, because he's got that walk, He's stooping a little bit, he's hanging his head, moving kind of slow. We can tell just from looking at him that he's not in a good place. Now, immediately before this scene, he also provides this little voiceover narration, and he's talking about how he's experiencing a winter of the heart. I really love that, by the way, because I think that does a very effective job of kind of putting us in his state of mind. I should also mention that it is wintertime, so there's snow all around. It's a very cold, dreary reality that he's walking through. And as he's walking through that cold, dreary snow, he's also talking about the winter that he's feeling in his heart. It's cold, it's empty. So that's kind of a neat poetic setup there. Now, he makes his way to Matthews and Spinney, fine art dealers. So they've got like a little shop. And he tries to sell them some of his paintings. This is where we not only really get to know Eben, but we also meet my favorite character in this film, that Miss Spinney. That's the one that's played by Ethel Barrymore. Now, Barrymore, as I mentioned, plays a supporting role here, but she's very important to our story. Here's the clip.
Yes, sir. What can I do for you? Well, you can buy one of my pictures, perhaps. Yes, but of course we buy very, very little, almost nothing. Times being what they are. However, let me see what you have. Landscapes. Mostly. Yeah, too bad. These are some things I did up at Cape Cod. That's the fisheries at North Truro. Land's End? Yeah, landscapes. Here's some sketches of the city. That's the bridge. Yes, it's a good bridge, but I just don't happen to like bridges. They come in every day by the dozen. Oh, Spinney, you startled me. This is my partner, Miss Spinney. I don't believe I caught your name.
I didn't say it. My name is Eben Adams.
What are you so defensive about?
I'm not.
I'm Eben Adams. I should be better if you weren't. You might eat more. Don't be in such a hurry. Let's see what you've got here.
There's nothing there that'll interest you or your partner.
You're probably right. I'd like to see what interests you. Sit down, Adams. You may not sell anything, but at least you'll rest.
I'd advise you to sit.
You paint a nice flower.
Thank you.
You ever read Robert Browning?
Long time ago.
Do you remember his poem about Andrea del Sarto, the perfect painter? Proportion, anatomy, color. He had everything and nothing. He painted a perfect hand, while Raphael drew a formless claw. But Raphael loved his work. Poor Andy Del Sarto.
I think I get your point.
There isn't a drop of love in any of these.
Oh, really, Miss Spinney.
Don't be soft, Matthews. I'm an old maid, and nobody knows more about love than an old maid. What's the matter with you, Adams? We have to learn to care deeply for something. Now take the flower.
What?
I happen to have a weakness for flowers. He doesn't do them too badly. Give you $12.50 for it. Is any argument? There's no sale.
It's no argument.
You pay him, Mr. Matthew.
Have your change of $1.
I haven't got a dime.
He'll owe us 50 cents.
If you want more flowers, I've got a carload of them at home.
I was afraid of that. Good day.
Thank you very much. Good day, Miss Spinney. I don't think you really wanted the picture.
If I hadn't wanted it, I wouldn't have taken it.
You have beautiful eyes. Goodbye.
Oh, dear. I'm afraid that picture isn't worth more than a couple of dollars.
No, but Adams is.
Oh my gosh, I love this clip. I love that scene. So much is said here. Okay, so let's kind of dissect it a little bit. Notice that Matthews is immediately unimpressed with what Eben shows him. You know, what does he have? He's got landscapes, bridges, flowers, the sorts of things that everyone paints. In fact, I think Matthews says something to the effect of, you know, he sees dozens of these things every day. So there's nothing in there that catches his attention. We also notice that there are no people in any of the paintings. Why not? Let's carry that question in our heads for a while because I think this is significant. Now, we learn a lot more when Miss Spinney enters the scene. She sees something in Eben's paintings that Matthews doesn't see. I don't know what it is. Potential something. There's something there. She buys his flower painting, and it's not because that flower painting is a masterpiece or because she feels like there's any value in that piece, but she does see some value in Eben rather, and so she's really investing in him. Now, she mentions a poem in this scene, Andrea del Sarto by Robert Browning. I don't know anything about that poem, so I looked it up. And yeah, it's really long. It's long. It's really much more boring than what we hear from Miss Spinney, which is essentially that the painter Raphael loved his own work, which made all the difference between him and other painters. Now, Eben has no love for his own work. And, you know, we get a sense already that he has no love at all. Oh, poor Eben. Now, Barrymore delivers a wonderful line at this point. She said, "I'm an old maid, and no one knows more about love than an old maid." Oh, I love that line. I think that might be my favorite line in the whole movie. The longing for a thing is what makes someone keenly aware of it. You know, that's such an interesting idea. So to round this idea out, we see Miss Spinney flattered easily at the end of this scene by the compliment that Eben gives her to her eyes. Oh, what a beautiful scene that is. Now, visually, there are a lot of cool things that happen in this film to kind of give it a dreamy, unreal, otherworldly quality. We see the first one right here, immediately following that scene that we just listened to, because on screen, in the transition between that scene and the next one, the film appears a little bit grainy, like a canvas. And we see that several times where it's almost like the film sort of merges into a painting and the painting sort of merges into a film. I really love that. It's subtle, but it does a great job of giving kind of that dreamy effect. It suggests that life itself is a painting, a work of art. Now we meet Jennie. Eben's walking through a park when he sees her. Now, let's step away from the movie for a minute and go back to the book. In the book, Jenny's described as a child, a little girl. I think she's around 10 years old in the book. In the movie, she's a little bit older than that. Why? Well, because she's being portrayed by Jennifer Jones, who's an adult. But they do make Jennifer Jones appear shorter and younger. All right. So I don't know. What is she? 11, 12 maybe in this movie? We have to kind of suspend reality for a minute to believe Jennifer Jones as a young girl. But she pulls it off. It doesn't mar the experience by any means. Okay, so she immediately strikes Eben as odd for a few reasons. For one, she's a young girl. She's out at the park at night. All right. So it's starting to get dark and she's all alone. She doesn't appear to be with anyone else. Secondly, and this is a major factor here, she's dressed in old fashioned clothes. Now, the story itself is set in the mid 1930s, but she's wearing like this big brimmed bonnet type hat and a dress that is clearly out of step with what people were wearing in the 1930s. It's more like around the 1910s kind of a look. All right, so visually she appears to be out of place, but she also says some things that are pretty weird. I mean, she talks about her parents in the present tense working as high wire jugglers at the Hammerstein Theater, but that theater had closed decades before. And then also, she sings this weird, haunting little tune.
Where I come from, nobody knows. And where I am going, everything goes. The wind blows, the sea flows, nobody knows. And where I am going, nobody knows.
That is such a weird song. And that's also in the book, by the way. I thought maybe that was a Hollywood invention that they just kind of threw in for some dramatic effect, but nope, it's original. Anyway, Eben and Jenny talk for a bit, and we can see clearly Eben is very charmed by her. I mean, she's a very sweet girl. She tells him about her friends, and he shows her his paintings. Now, this is where things take a slight turn here because she's pretty honest with him. She doesn't like these paintings, especially the paintings that he did of a raging dark sea. Now, we have a little bit of foreshadowing here. We'll set that aside for the moment. All right, so they talk for a bit, and now it's time for them to part ways. And Jenny says something else that's especially strange. She tells him that she wants to play a wishing game, and that her wish is that he'll wait for her to grow up so they can always be together. What? Wait for her to grow up? Well, now that sounds strange to us, right? Waiting to grow up. But it also sounds strange to Eben, too. She leaves, and he can't get this girl out of his head. He gets back to his apartment, and he draws a sketch of her when he's back and kind of remembering their day together. Okay, so now let's go back to Matthews and Spinney, because when Eben next visits them, he takes his sketch of Jenny with him, and it's met with some enthusiasm. Things are turning around for Eben.
What's this? Sketch of a little girl I saw in the park.
It's very good. Isn't it, Miss Binney?
Yes, I think you have something there, Adams.
Do you know why I like it?
Why?
There's a quality about the girl that reminds me of long ago. And there ought to be something timeless about a woman. Something eternal. You can see it in all the great portraits of the past. They make you feel you could meet those women anywhere and be inspired by them. Well then, Mr. Adams, I tell you what I'll do. I'll take that sketch. I'll give you $25 for it. And I don't care what Miss Binney says.
I'm not going to say anything. Now, Adams, you can stop feeling sorry for yourself.
Oh, no, things are looking up. Getting 3 meals a day for painting a mural, and now $25? Thank you. For a sketch. A sketch. Well, thank you.
Where are you going now?
Nowhere, anywhere. Where I come from, nobody knows, and where I'm going, anything goes.
What's that?
Oh, it's a song that little girl sang in the park.
Well, if you don't know where you're coming or going, perhaps you'd like a cup of tea.
Well, I don't care if I do.
Come along. Thank you. See you later, Mr. Matthews.
Oh, yes, as you say, Miss Binney.
See, that's all Eben needs, a little inspiration. And he seems to have found it in Jennie. Now, at this point in the story, Eben isn't sure he'll see her again, but he does keep an eye out for her. All right, so does he see her again? Yes, of course, because otherwise there would be no story here. He goes ice skating all alone. He's out there at that same park. He's ice skating. And what do you know? Jennie pops up, and she's skating too. Here's what's weird. She's older now. Even though just a few days have passed since he last saw her, she's taller. She's more mature. He even mentions this to her because he's like, wow, you've grown. And she tells him that she's hurrying, trying to grow up fast. Again, what? Okay, so it's during this second meeting that discussion of the portrait first comes up. Jennie asks if Eben will paint a portrait of her. Sure, he says, but he wants to ask her parents for their permission. Well, she tells him again that they're at Hammerstein's working on their high wire act. Okay, well, they chat for a little while. Jennie walks away, and Eben kind of follows her with his gaze. All of a sudden, who walks up? Miss Spenny. And she sees that Eben is looking at something, and she asks him, what? What is he looking at? And he points out that he had just been talking to Jennie, but Miss Spenny didn't see her. Again, mysterious. Who is this strange girl that only he can see? And so begins intermittent meetings with Jennie, and each time she has aged a few years. Now, we're going to get to the rest of this story and my review of it in a moment, but first, a word from our sponsors. No, not really. We have no sponsors. It's just me and Lorenzo with an overview of how I'm rating all the movies I'm watching for this series. Now, this might also be a good time to pause this episode and actually watch Portrait of Jennie. As of this recording, it's available to watch for free out on YouTube. If you watch it, do come back, okay? Promise me you'll come back. Pick up this episode of the podcast where we've left off, and I'll be interested to see if you agree with my conclusions.
Attention listeners. It is time to learn how Jennifer rates movies.
Our scale is pretty simple. We classify a film as either unwatchable, watchable, or rewatchable, or somewhere in between. An unwatchable film is really bad. So bad, in fact, that it's hard to sit through. It's either boring or stupid or cringy or just plain terrible. Now, a watchable film is one that's basically okay. It gives you something to do for a couple of hours, may have some interesting and entertaining parts, but it doesn't really leave a strong impression on you. A rewatchable film, on the other hand, is one that's so good, so meaningful, so impactful, so riveting, so thought-provoking, so emotionally charged, and/or so beautifully produced that you would invest the time necessary to watch it again. So there we have it. Our scale is unwatchable, watchable, or rewatchable. Now, I have a worksheet that helps me calculate the rating. I essentially award points, or what I call diamonds, to films based on 5 factors: story, character development, writing, so that would show up in a film as dialogue or narration, pace, and discussability. Now, when I'm considering discussability, what I'm basically doing is answering the question, does the story have enough depth to explore and analyze through discussion? Because, that's the fun part.
It's that it.
Yes. No. One last thing about my rating system.
I thought we were done.
This is my system. I'm not a film student. I don't really know anything about film. The factors I've built in are those that I care about. I don't watch or read other reviews, so nothing influences the way I feel about a film beyond the film itself.
It's that it.
One more last thing.
This overview is dragging on.
When reviewing a film, I try really hard to stay within the confines of the story. I don't consider the historical context of the film, when it was released, and I don't care about the biographies of the stars or the filmmakers or anything like that. The story itself is the thing that I care about.
Jennifer, I must ask.
Sure, Lorenzo, go ahead.
Are there ever spoilers in your reviews?
Oh, good call out, Lorenzo. Yes, there will be spoilers. How do you talk about a film without giving parts away? I don't know how you do that. So listeners are always advised to watch the subject film first before tuning into our podcast.
It's that it.
Yes.
Are you sure?
Yes, I'm sure of it. That's it.
Well, then, let's get on with the show.
Okay, now where did we leave off? Oh yes, our little Jennie is growing up. And yes, Eben and Jennie fall in love. We saw this coming, didn't we? The story, however, becomes weirder and weirder at this point. Eben tries to find out a little bit more about Jennie, so he talks to people who knew both her and her parents. It turns out Jennie and her parents...
Attention listeners. This is a spoiler alert. Take cover immediately.
are dead. Yes, they're dead. Her parents died from their high wire act. Apparently the wire broke. They came tumbling down and fell to their deaths. But Jennie is also dead, so she died in a storm at sea. Remember how in that first meeting with Eben, she told him that she didn't like the sea pictures, the ones with the raging storms? Well, now we know why. They reminded her of her own tragic end. All of this happened years earlier. Okay, so let's stop for a moment, kind of sort out what we've got to work with here. We have a man falling in love with a ghost. Or is she a ghost? Maybe she's a time traveler, slipping through time at intervals, and that almost seems the most likely. She seems to know that she's caught in some sort of temporal anomaly, some sort of rift in time, even if she doesn't quite understand it. Now, Eben is going to go along with this time travel theory that she isn't a ghost but a time traveler. So let's go to a clip where he contemplates how to resolve this wacky problem. He's in love with this gal that is traveling through time.
Jennie, I'd be lost without you.
No, don't say that, Eben. Can't both of us be lost? Look at the moonlight on the water. It makes a pathway across the river. The Jersey Hills are over there, aren't they?
In the distance.
You say it sadly, Eben. Aren't you happy?
I've been thinking, no matter how far away that kind of distance is, it can be reached. Over there beyond the hills, one can drive to. North among the pines, eastward to the sea. It's the only kind of distance I ever knew anything about before. But now
I feel it's another kind of distance, a crueler distance, a distance of yesterday and tomorrow, and it frightens me. Frightens me that there's no way to bridge it.
There is. At this moment, I know there is.
I want it to be forever.
It will be. Have faith.
Now, notice that Jenny says she doesn't want both of them to be lost. So, see, she seems to know that she's floating through time. What about that portrait? Yeah, he's painted her as a young woman, the woman he loves, and he shows the painting to Matthews and Spinney. Well, let's go back to Matthews and Spinney one last time for their assessment of the portrait.
So this is where the master works. Well, there's much of a place. It's over here, Spenny. Of course, it isn't finished yet.
Don't be coy. Let's see it.
Well. What do you think?
Well, Adams, you found what you were looking for.
You like it?
Adams, I've been selling pictures for many years. And in my business, it's always a dream that someday you'll come across, shall we say, a great picture. This is, I feel now, a sort of fulfillment of mine.
He means he likes it.
I'm glad.
Do you remember my saying there ought to be something eternal about a woman? Something not of the present nor of the past? Well, here you've got it. It's the face of that same little girl. Yet what you've seen in that face is without age or time.
Well, it isn't finished. It really isn't.
Take it easy, Adams. It's a great picture.
Eben has found what he's been looking for. Okay, well, so what is that exactly? Love? Maybe. More importantly, because he's an artist, inspiration. He found his inspiration. Now, Eben has a real problem here, right? Because he's in love with this girl. She's traveling through time. She's doomed to die in a storm at sea. He knows this. He loves her desperately. And I should point out that she's become an obsession for him. You know, he had a commission for a mural that he was supposed to be working on. It went unfinished for quite a while. He did ultimately end up finishing the mural, but it's like everything else in his life kind of fell away, and it was just all Jenny. Now, is he carrying this burden alone? Not exactly, because he tells everything to Miss Spinney. Now, Miss Spinney is a great listener, right? She's very sympathetic and a little skeptical here. You know, we get the sense that she believes that Jenny is really more a dream than a reality, that Eben found in his imagination a source of inspiration. Jenny is just simply a figment of that imagination. And that really kind of gets us to a big question at the end of this film. Was Jenny real? More on that later, because we do have reason to believe that she was real. Okay, so anyway, Eben is going to go ahead and hatch a plan. So he decides that if he can get to that island where Jenny died on the same calendar day, not necessarily the year, but the calendar day as her death, he can kind of jump to that timeline and save her. Yeah, it's a little far-fetched, but, you know, it's all he can do. He's desperate. Well, he gets to that island on the date, and indeed a storm is raging. So it does seem to be a repeat of that day many years ago when Jenny died. Does he find her? Well, yes, of course he does. Her little boat washes ashore, and he can see that the waves are crashing violently. Is he able to save her?
Spoiler alert!
No, she dies. Yeah, didn't you think there was going to be a little turnaround there? No, she dies. They do have enough time to declare their love for each other, but alas, she is swept away. He does survive, and so does the portrait, where it hangs in a museum, his solitary masterpiece, his magnum opus. Now, interesting bit of visual filmery here. This movie was filmed almost entirely in black and white, and I say almost because the storm at sea is shot with this kind of weird green filter, so it's particularly otherworldly. Now, for that death scene, I want to turn back from the movie again to the book. There are a few differences, by the way, between the book and the movie, per usual. I mean, that's always the way it is. But I don't want to really focus on those because they're not that important to me. But instead, I think the book does capture this death scene really nicely. So just sort of indulge me here as I read this scene. Eben is telling us this story in first person. Okay, so here we are. Kind of close your eyes, imagine the scene. We'll have to hurry, Jenny, I told her. I tried to pull her along up the slope, but she was like dead weight. She seemed to have no strength at all. She smiled at me piteously and shook her head. You go, Eben. I can't make it. I tried to lift her, but she was just too heavy for me. I couldn't find a foothold on the slippery ground. The water was higher now, almost at our feet. A dark ripple washed in over my ankles. Jenny, I cried, for God's sake! Let me look at you, she whispered. I couldn't hear her, but I knew what she was saying. She held my face in her hands, and she looked at me for a moment with wide, dark eyes. It's been a long time, she said. I didn't want to talk. I wanted to get out of there. I wanted to get her up on that slope away from the water. Look, I said, if I could lift you up on my back. But she didn't seem to hear me. Yes, she said, almost to herself. I wasn't wrong. Jenny, I cried, please. Her arms tightened around me for a moment. Hold me close, Eben, she said. We're together now. It was then that I saw it coming. It came in from the bay, a great brown wave sweeping back up the valley toward the sea. There was no escape from it. We could never have climbed above it. It came in steady and very fast, with a strange sucking noise. Well, I thought, we'll go together anyhow. Bending over, I kissed her. Jenny, I said, we're together now. She knew what was coming. Eben, she whispered, pressed against my cheek. There's only one love. Nothing can change it. It's still all right, whatever happens, because we'll always be together. Somewhere. I know, I said. And then the wave hit us. Oh gosh, what a scene, what a scene. Okay, so what's happening here? Well, a lot actually. She says that there's only one love. What does she mean? Well, I think she means that there's only one true love that each of us has in a lifetime, and that one true love crosses the eternal timeline. Their love got separated by different timelines, but those timelines merge upon death. Oh, and by the way, here's an important detail. Eben didn't die. Okay, Jenny did die. Eben survived. But you know what? It doesn't matter because even though they're separated for now, love remains. Okay, now permit me to drag in another poem here because I'm reminded of a poem by Dylan Thomas that I read in college. And that poem is called And Death Shall Have No Dominion. There's this really beautiful line in that poem that I'm reminded of really throughout this movie. And here's the line. Though lovers be lost, love shall not, and death shall have no dominion. It's a beautiful line. Okay, well, so anyway, Jenny says at the end that it's all right, whatever happens, because we'll always be together somewhere. Again, a reference to eternity, this mysterious eternity. Now, I think we can draw a parallel here to heaven. There is truly one love. She's right about that. The truest love of all, the love of God, which is eternal. Okay, so that brings us to the end of our story. Eben's portrait of Jenny hangs in a museum, and I think I might have mentioned this before. In one last bit of magical filmery, our picture is full color now. We're in reality. We see Jenny as Eben saw her, in living color. Okay, so how much do I love this film? So much. If you couldn't tell. Very much indeed. Okay, so before we get though to my official rating, because we're going to work through the rating system, let's take a brief intermission so I can kind of collect myself, and we'll be back in a moment.
It's intermission time. Time for that stretch you've been wanting. And best of all, time to take your pick from that scrumptious array of tasty treats waiting for you at the snack bar, where the popcorn's poppin', the cold drinks are sparkling, the hot dogs are sizzling, the coffee is steaming, and a luscious treasure of confectionery delights with ice cream and candy and so much more to tempt any taste is waiting for you now at the snack bar. You'll be notified in plenty of time when the next show is about to begin.
Here's a new taste treat. The corn dog. Plump, juicy wieners are dipped in a thick, golden Southern-style corn batter that seals in all their freshness and flavor. If you like hot dogs, you'll love corn dogs. Everybody does. Try a corn dog with your favorite beverage. At the refreshment corner now. Corn dogs.
And now for my rating. Remember, we're determining if this film is rewatchable, watchable, or unwatchable. Now, we already know that I like this film, okay? So unwatchable is going to be off the table here. But was it just watchable or rewatchable? Now, to be rewatchable, it must earn a minimum of 4 diamonds and be judged by me as extraordinarily meaningful and enjoyable, okay? So let's go to each of the elements that we're looking at here, and we'll begin with story. Was this an interesting and entertaining story worth telling? 5 out of 5 diamonds. Yes, this was a story worth telling. It was interesting, unique, entertaining, and most importantly, it had something to say. It had something to say about love, about art, about the dichotomy of a frail and resilient human heart. Yes, absolutely a story worth telling. 5 diamonds, no question. Character development. Were the characters dimensional? Did their actions ring true? 4 diamonds for this one. You know, I went back and forth. I vacillated between 4 and 5 diamonds for this one. Jenny was really pretty one-dimensional, honestly. But Eben and Miss Spinney, they were the interesting characters in this story. I think there's a lot of depth there, especially with Miss Spinney, which I know is strange because her role was relatively, small in this film. But I loved that character, and I think there's a lot to kind of drill down into there. I kind of felt like she was somebody that I wanted to know. I would like to sit down and have a talk with her. Okay, so I'm reluctantly giving it 4 diamonds just because I thought Jenny was kind of one-dimensional. I just, and that's okay. Not all the characters have to be, really amazing. Okay, next item here is writing. Was the dialogue beautiful, funny, poignant, and or thought-provoking? 4 diamonds. There were some beautifully written and poignant lines in this film. There was the one about the old maids knowing about love, but there was also the bit from Matthews about how women should have a timeless, eternal quality about them. I liked that. Eben also had some poetic observations about his own struggles. So, 4 diamonds for this one, bordering on 5 diamonds. Okay, what about the pace? At what speed did the story unfold? 5 diamonds, it was just right. Not too slow, not too fast. It kept my interest, it did not drag on, and it didn't speed through things either. I thought it was just right. Okay, now, my favorite item here is discussability. Does the story have enough depth to explore and analyze through discussion? 5 diamonds. 5 diamonds. If I could give it 7 diamonds, I would do that. But then that would violate my own scale, so I won't do that. But there is a lot to discuss here. I haven't even scratched the surface in this review. This is an easy 5 diamonds. Okay, so what is our average? 4.6 diamonds. And I love the film. So, Portrait of Jennie officially earns our rewatchable designation. Will I rewatch it? I will. All right, so definitely, if you have not seen Portrait of Jennie, give this one a watch. Like I said, you can watch it for free out on YouTube right now, probably forever. I don't know that people are clamoring to see this film, but they should because it's a good one. And in fact, I think this one might become one of my favorites.
And now it's time for Headlines in History.
Thanks, Lorenzo. Well, Portrait of Jennie was released on Christmas Day in 1948, so I thought it might be cool to see what was happening here in my own hometown on that day.
Where is your hometown?
Kansas City, Missouri.
Ah, yes, Kansas City. I have fond memories of it.
You do? You've been here?
No,
Anyway, I'm turning to the archives of the Kansas City Star, our newspaper, to grab a few headlines.
how nice.
Yeah, to give us a flavor of the times.
A very good idea.
Okay, so I'm just kind of scanning here for random headlines of interest. Okay, here's one. Wide range in thefts. Variety of loot taken in Christmas night forays. Let's see. Evidently a poultry firm. Does that say farm or firm? Firm. Okay, evidently a poultry firm was robbed. There was a drugstore holdup and a purse seizure. Well, Merry Christmas to you. Let's take a look at that poultry caper. Only 2 turkeys remained in stock last night when the operators of the Woodland Poultry Company at 1812 East 12th Street locked up. When the store was opened again this morning, only 1 bird was there. Thieves had broken the front door lock to enter and take a 12-pound turkey and 4 chickens with a total value of $20. Well, it sounds like somebody needed Christmas dinner.
That is a very tragic story.
Yeah, I don't really like that one. Let's see, what else do we have? Oh, okay, now here's something sweet. And it's on the first page, too. A poem. Now, we have to remember that this was the Christmas Day edition, so it was likely kind of a slow news day. So here we have a sweet little poem on the first page of the newspaper. Now, this is called The Ever Sweet Tree, and it's got these really cute little illustrations by it. Okay, so here it goes. The Ever Sweet Tree. A vision to me is the peppermint tree, topped with a coconut star. Its boughs are aglow with sugary snow and all of the candies there are. Oh, the peppermint tree is a beauty to see as it shimmers with taffies and creams. It glitters with bunches of clusters and crunches and sparkles with chocolate dreams. Oh, the bonbons you see on the peppermint tree are tempting and tasty and merry. Each candy bough trickles with frosty icicles in flavors from maple to cherry. Oh, lollipops sprout from the tree all about, and jawbreakers dangle like plums. In the matter of sweets and similar treats, we've enough until next Christmas comes. Oh, that's so cute. I love that.
Very nice.
Okay. Oh, and here's a headline about President Truman. Truman was our hometown boy. He was also president of the United States at that time. So I'm sure this is probably going to be a hard-hitting piece of raw journalism. Let's see what we've got here. Headline: President peeks at some gifts before family arises. Okay, a jovial Harry S. Truman, arising early on Christmas Day this morning, said Santa Claus had been good to him. The president did not let the holiday festivities interfere with his regular morning walk. He strode briskly from his home in Independence. By the way, that's a suburb of Kansas City. Okay, so he was president at the time. He must have come home here to Kansas City for the holidays. All right, so he strode briskly from his home in Independence. And that was at 8 o'clock. And he was accompanied only by 3 Secret Service agents. Well, that sounds like fun. Uh-oh.
What happened?
Too much partying in Kansas City on Christmas Eve, 1948. Gaiety and woes mix. Holiday celebrations lead to 70 calls on brawls. This print is a little bit hard to read. Okay. Brawls, quarrels, shootings, and stabbings. Christmas Eve hilarity that got out of hand made one of the busiest nights in 10 years for police answering disturbance calls. Okay, 70 calls of shootings, stabbings, arguments, and fights were made before midnight and during the early morning hours to the dispatcher at police headquarters.
Some things never change.
Yeah, very true. Hey, let's look at what was playing at the local theaters and see if I can find Portrait of Jennie. Okay. By the way, I'm reading this online, if anyone's wondering. The Kansas City Star Archives. Okay. All right. Here are the films. Now, I'm not sure if Portrait of Jennie was released across the U.S. on December 25th, or maybe it just premiered in Los Angeles and New York or something. Not sure. But let's take a look. At the Paramount Theater, we have Bob Hope and Jane Russell in The Paleface. At the Uptown Theater, we could see Abbott and Costello in Mexican Hayride. Ooh, we could see The Last Days of Pompeii with a cast of 10,000. Wow. And here's a big ad for a movie. What is this? Hedy Lamarr and Robert Cummings at the Roxy in Let's Live a Little. Okay, I don't see Portrait of Jennie. So maybe that was to come to Kansas City a bit later. Okay, well, anyway, that's what was news in Kansas City on December 25th, 1948.
What's that?
Well, that signals the end of our show.
Oh,
Well, what did you think?
it was very long.
You think so?
Yes,
Well, other than that, what did you think?
I have never heard a better podcast.
Wow, really? Have you heard a lot of podcasts?
No, this is my first one.
Oh, well, hey, listeners, thanks so much for tuning into our first show. If you think it has potential and you want to give us another chance, well, I hope you'll tune into our next episode.
They can only get better.
Yeah, that's true.
How could they get worse?
In future episodes, we'll look at other movies on my watch list, but from time to time, we'll cover other things too. There are so many cool things in the world to talk about. So go off and enjoy your week, and when your week is done, I hope you'll come back and see us real soon. Say goodbye, Lorenzo.
Goodbye, Lorenzo.